Steve was talking about, I think we deal with some of the same challenges. And right now, we're really working on updating and going through our database, and it's a big source of our business right now. I think the key, though, is the time blocking, personally, because if when we do that, we're focused on the important stuff. So we're going to come in, we're going to get the important stuff done, and get it out of the way, then we can kind of focus on the other stuff. So I have a really structured schedule, and I believe, I heard somebody says, discipline creates freedom, structure creates freedom. That's really the way we live, and my whole team.
But just to give everybody a frame of reference, how many transactions so far this year?
I want to say we had 2 closings today, so we're about 81 units so far this year.
So time blocking works.
Time blocking works.
Congratulations.
Thanks.
Yeah, we do. We definitely use technology to keep track of everything, because I've learned to hear from Gary enough about not making a business about my willpower. And so we use my red tools. I've floated back and forth between that and Top Producer. I think both of them can work for you. Time blocking is absolutely important. It's one of those things, it's funny the way the question was written, where it doesn't seem to fit into my world. I think all of us relate to that, and probably all of us felt that way at some point, right? And we've come to learn that you've got to get over that. Because if you don't make it fit into your world, then you're working on somebody else's schedule. And once you become a slave to somebody else's schedule or the world's routine and schedule, then you'll be in that, what we call the 80%. You'll be focused on things that are not revenue producing, because there's more of that than there are things that are revenue producing. And sometimes they're even more fun. But you've got to be disciplined enough, like John said, where you talk about self-discipline. I think that's probably the most important piece of self-discipline is particularly on owning your schedule. And my advice to anybody that's struggling with that is to start with something smaller, is try to own your morning. That's what I try to tell people. Don't even, if you can't get disciplined enough to own your entire day, own your morning. Write down the 3 most important things that will change your business and finish those by 12, by noon. If you can just do that, own your morning, then that will change your life, and then the other things will start to fall into place. And then in that period of time, find ways to eliminate the distractions. If email's a distraction, don't open email until 12:01. If your cell phone's a distraction, don't turn it on until 12:01. Find those things and then stick to it. So own your morning, and that should be enough to get you to a very high level of time blocking.
So again, by way of setting that baseline, how many transactions this year?
This year we'll probably close around 200 transactions.
So time blocking is necessary.
It's absolutely.
Do you time blocks, Steve?
With difficulty, we do. You know, it's one of the things I have trouble with, because I relate to that comment. It doesn't fit my schedule. Just doing it a bit is incredibly powerful. I actually don't try to own the whole. Everyone should break one major rule. The major rule I break and I make it over it, I'm just not a morning person. If I can be dressed with a cup of coffee and the phone in my hand at 9 a.m., I win. But rather than, and I think owning your morning is a great suggestion, because I still have 3 hours. But one thing I will do is I will just put key events on the schedule. Whether it's prospecting, whether it's database update, whether it's working on marketing, and I will put key things on the schedule. And when we time block just a bit, our productivity is so much better. Chris Heller, one of the top agents in the company, was asked, what do you attribute to your success? What do you attribute it to? And he said, simply, I stick to my schedule. So I know how powerful it is, but for someone to say, it doesn't really work for me, it's profound, because I get it, but no one said it was easy, but it is simple. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And we use Top Producer. We've used Red Tools, but I hired somebody who didn't use it right and copying the database, like erased half of it, and I'm traumatized from going, did it?
Same thing,
From Red Tools.
yeah.
It traumatized me from going back to them. So I'm letting it lie in dormancy, and God, they made me feel like I was the only one that ever happened to. And they took out categories, like nightmare, and so Top Producer's a little more money, but I just can't actually bring myself to go back to Red Tools. They have some great prepackaged stuff, but it wasn't quite as customized as Top Producer. I do think it's the best of them, but that's me.
Same question. How many transactions this year?
I think it's about 52 or something so far. So
Different price points, huh? Yeah,
the
these guys
price,
go your way.
the price points are different, but it makes me realize how much room I have to grow. If I did 100 transactions, you know, we have like a mirror of challenges, because I could say, well, if I can only do 100 transactions, I'd have $2 million in revenue. And you might say, well, if I could just do 100, you probably if I do 200 transactions, if I just like did that in a little bit more of an expensive name. So, you know, you got to succeed at what you're endeavoring to do, but the 200 transactions piece is amazing.
Okay, same question.
I use Top Producer. I do time block. Mornings, I'm up at 6:30. Usually at the office by 7:30. From 7:30 to 9 o'clock, I don't answer my phone, no cell phone, no nothing. Strictly follow my schedule to get the day off on the right foot. I don't know how you can do it any other way, quite frankly, because the rest of the day you just get caught up in the rest of the day. I try to return all my calls in the same day by 8 p.m. Shut my phone off at 7 so I can spend time with my family. If I'm negotiating an offer, I will keep it on just to tie up the transaction if I can. But very crucial to time block, I think, too. I hope to do myself 40 transactions.
Hey, John Chapin, I'm going to start with a transaction, 0. But I've spoken over 100 times in the last 12 months, which really comes down to, and you touched on it, it's sales, anything is a numbers game. You touched on it, the more people you talk to, the more business you will do, even a blind pig finds corn. If you talk to enough people, you will eventually run into somebody who says, I need an agent. It's just that simple. But what you talked about also was the different ways, and if you talk to us, we all have a different way to be successful. There are a million ways to get to the top of Mount Everest. Do I time block a little bit occasionally when I have to? But no. What I do is I set up, I look at it as 2 different ways to get to where you want to go. One is time blocking, another is having a list of priorities. Boom, 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 and you hit them. And your number 1 priority should be, how many people are you talking to? How many people are you staying in touch with? How are you building your network? How are you doing things like that? So my list is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Occasionally, back in the beginning when I started speaking, I time blocked certain things. From 9 a.m. to 11 a.m., I was calling people for speeches.